How's it going, everyone, and welcome to the Thinking Blue podcast. I'm your host, Blake Harris. On today's episode, I'll be giving you my predictions for the 26-man roster and who I think will make the cut, who I think is going to start the season in AAA, and who is going to be one of the 26 guys suiting up for the Dodgers come opening day. I'm also going to be discussing the latest news and injuries out of Camelback Ranch. Now, if you haven't already, make sure to follow me on Twitter at Blake Harris TBLA, where I post a lot of great Dodgers content over there. And also, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, turn on those notifications so you never miss a video or a podcast. If you can't listen on YouTube, you can find me on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Go over there, search up Thinking Blue with Blake Harris. Make sure to follow me over there. That way you can listen to the podcast in the car going to work, in the gym working out, wherever you may be. That way you never miss a show. But before we get started with my 26-man predictions, let's go over the latest news so far that's come out of spring training. The first piece I want to touch up on is the fact that Blake Treinen is scheduled to make his first appearance on Saturday. Now, Blake Treinen, kind of a guy that a lot of Dodger fans have already kind of forgotten about the fact that he's even on the team because we haven't really seen or heard much of him this spring. I guess the Dodgers have been working on his mechanics, building him up to make sure he's fully ready to go. He's going to make his Dodger debut tomorrow. This is a guy where back in like November and December, well, I guess not November, I guess December, whenever it was, he was cut by the A's. I said this is a guy the Dodgers absolutely need to go after. They absolutely need to sign him because, let's get this out of the way, Blake Treinen was absolutely awful in 2019. He was brutal. He went 6-5, only had 16 saves, had an ERA of just under 5. I mean, he finished the year with an ERA of 4.91, a whip of 1.62, and he had a strikeout to walk ratio of 1.59. Now, yeah, by any means, those are really bad numbers for a relief pitcher. But when you take into account what he did in 2018, 9-2, 38 saves, 0.78 ERA, 0.83 whip, and he had a strikeout to walk ratio of 4.76. I've talked about Blake Treinen in a few previous podcasts, but this is a guy where just 2 seasons ago, he was the best relief pitcher in all of baseball. Even the back end of 2017, when he was traded to the A's, you can make the case he was one of the better relievers in all of baseball. So he comes to the Dodgers now, and if he's healthy, now I'm not asking Blake Treinen to come out and do what he did in 2018, but if he can come out, if he can, have that ERA right at about 3, maybe a little lower, bring that whip down, have a strikeout to walk ratio of maybe 3-1, this is going to be huge for the Dodgers. So I'm really excited to see how he looks tomorrow. Now, it is spring training, so I'm not going to read too much into his outing. So if he has a great outing, great. If he has a bad outing, I'm not going to get too worked up over it. I just want to see, how his velocity looks, how his pitches look, and, how many pitches he's able to throw. I assume they're probably going to throw him out there for only 1 inning, so it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, Blake Treinen making his Dodgers debut on Saturday. That's going to be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to that. Now, in regards to some of the latest injury news, we have about 5 guys to go over. Dustin May, he's resumed throwing, which is a bit of good news. Now, I don't know what his timetable is. I don't know when he's expected to pitch in a big league game this spring, but at least he's resumed throwing. He hasn't, had much activity so far in spring. I think he, injured himself, the first or second day. So the fact that he's throwing again, that's a good sign. When's he going to be in a game? Not exactly sure, but hopefully he's on track to do that within the next week or 2. Jock Peterson, he was fully cleared today, which is a good sign. It looks like the next step for him is going to be playing in minor league games, so that's probably going to be another week or so. So hopefully within the next week and a half to 2 weeks, Jock Peterson can get a few spring training at-bats under his belt. The good thing is, though, the fact that he's been fully cleared and he's going to be appearing in a minor league game soon, that would make me assume he's going to be fully ready to go for opening day. I mean, opening day is actually 20 days away from today, so we're just under 3 weeks away from opening day. So I think Jock Peterson's going to be ready by then. Now, he could have a setback. Something could happen. But, again, the fact that he's been fully cleared with 3 weeks to go, that's definitely a good sign. So I think Jock Peterson's going to be ready for opening day. Chris Taylor, he's still healing from an injury. He was hit by a pitch last week. I guess he said it was above his joints, so not exactly sure what his timetable is. Now, according to Dave Roberts, it looks like he is going to be ready for opening day. This isn't something that should lag on much longer. It looks like he should be ready to appear in a game within the next few days or so, definitely within the next week. So Chris Taylor, another good sign. Let him heal. But it looks like he'll be ready for opening day as well. Looks like Jimmy Nelson is throwing a bullpen session. I talked about this in the last podcast, but I guess he had some setbacks with some injuries. He's been dealing with a bunch of injuries all spring, but I guess last week there were some new ones that turned out. So Jimmy Nelson throwing a bullpen session again. Now, I talked about this, I think, on my last podcast or maybe one before that, but I strongly believe Jimmy Nelson is going to start the season on the injured list. He's just had so many injuries so far this spring. I don't have him up, but I think he's had like 3 to 4 different lingering injuries. So again, it's good news that he's starting a bullpen session now, but now it could be some time until we see him appear in a spring training game. And, if he only has 1 or 2 innings under his belt, I'm not exactly sure the Dodgers are going to be confident enough to throw him out there on opening day to have him on the 26-man roster. So I think in order for Jimmy Nelson to be fully ready to go for opening day, he's probably going to have to be in a game by like March 14th, March 15th, I would say. So he does have about 10 days or so to get healthy. But again, my prediction is he's going to start the season on the injured list. But then again, who knows? He can come out in the next few days and be ready to go. That's another name to keep an eye on because Jimmy Nelson, depending on whether or not he's healthy enough, that could be a major name to follow in regards to the 26-man roster because as of right now, if he's healthy, he's definitely one of the 26 guys. If he starts the season on the injured list, all of a sudden now you're having to dive in and take someone off the 40-man roster that's going to be on that opening day 26-man roster. So again, Jimmy Nelson, definitely a name to keep an eye on to see how he progresses with his health moving forward. One final name I want to touch up on. Now, he's not injured, at least anymore, because he appeared in a game, what was it, yesterday, and hit a home run, but that's Cody Bellinger. I just briefly wanted to talk about this. He had this, side injury that happened earlier in the week. Now, for those of you that have Twitter, you might have noticed that Sunday night there was a huge tournament going on at Topgolf out in Arizona. And, first off, Mike Trout cleared the fence, which I guess is 295 yards. So he sent that thing essentially 1,000 feet at least. But Cody Bellinger was participating as well. Had a healthy hack. I guess it went 295 yards, hit the fence. And then all of a sudden the next day he had a side injury. Now, he came out, Dave Roberts came out. They all said that his injury had nothing to do with the Topgolf swing. Which, then again, no way he comes out and says, yeah, you know what, I actually hurt my side swinging last night at Topgolf. Personally, I think he may have tweaked a little something, but the good news is he's back, he's fully healthy. He took a few days off, and as I said, he hit a home run yesterday. Looks fine, but I'm on the believing side that Cody Bellinger may have... Now, it might have already been there, but I think that Topgolf thing may have led to the injury just a tad. But again, that's just my opinion. But those are the latest injuries so far to Camelback Ranch. Hopefully those are the only injuries that stay, in the news because we're only, 3 weeks away from opening day. You've kept everyone healthy so far. Hopefully everyone stays healthy and we have nothing more of that. Because as of right now, it looks like, aside from maybe Jimmy Nelson, it looks like there's going to be no one starting the season on the injured list. Now, knock on wood, there's still a lot of games to happen, but as of right now, it looks like the Dodgers are going to start the season fully healthy. All right, one name I do want to talk about really quickly, and I guess this actually could go into the injury category, and that's Yadier Alvarez. Last week, I think it was last Friday, Yadier Alvarez, he was supposed to pitch in the spring training game. He was supposed to come out of the bullpen, and, mid-game, he wasn't seen, and it was then announced that he was scratched with, I guess, a shoulder injury. And so you're thinking, okay, that's a drag. A day later, it comes out where the Dodgers designated Yadier Alvarez for assignment. So all of a sudden, there's a lot of great news coming out in regards to Alvarez where he's going to make his first appearance. He has a chance to crack the 40-man roster come opening day if he can have a good, healthy month where he pretty much throws well and pretty much his maturity isn't an issue. And all of a sudden, this random shoulder injury comes out of nowhere. We haven't really heard much about this shoulder injury, at least nothing that the beat writers have tweeted or posted over the last week or so. We just know it was a shoulder injury. We know it's sidelined him, and I guess it was bad enough for the Dodgers to DFA him. Now, the good news is he did clear waivers, so he is back with the Dodgers. He's now going to report to minor league camp, so hopefully, whatever the shoulder injury is, he can have it heal. He can figure his things out there, probably start the season in AA, single A, wherever he needs to go, and hopefully he can continue to work things out because I talked about this in my last show. He's a guy where he was signed. He was like the top guy in that international draft class years ago. He was, I think, like a top 50 overall prospect in baseball at one point in 2016 or 2017. Had some, off the field type maturity issues. Really struggled last year in 2019, though he did only, I think, appear in 2 games, only threw like 3 innings, so His ERA was kind of skewed there, so hopefully Yadier Alvarez, whatever this injury is, he can heal, he can return to the minors, and he can pitch his way, hopefully one day, to the 40-man and big league roster for the Dodgers, because this is a guy that had so much promise. He's only 23 years old still, so even if it takes another year or two, he's still going to be fairly young. So Yadier Alvarez, whatever's going on, hopefully he's able to figure his things out, and hopefully, like I said, he can eventually crack the 26-man roster with the Dodgers. But that's the latest news in regards to injuries and players. There are two names that I briefly want to talk about who had some notable performances this past week. The first one is Clayton Kershaw. He has looked fantastic so far this spring. He's made 2 starts, has gone 4 2/3 innings, 8 strikeouts, 2 hits, 2 walks, no earned runs. Clayton Kershaw, I mean, again, it's only spring training, so take that for what you want, but he has looked dominant. He's looked like the former number 1 ace that he has been in years past. His curveball has looked fantastic. It's looked unhittable. His slider is good as ever. His fastball, I think early on, his velocity was clocked at, I want to say 92 miles an hour. So the velocity's there. Kershaw says he feels so much better at this time than he did last year. So he's entering 2020 healthier than he did in 2019, which is great because, I mean, he had that injury. I think he missed the first month of 2019. So Kershaw, as of right now, looks like he's going to be heading into 2020 fully healthy. Personally, as I've said before, I hope he's the opening day starter. I hope he gets that nod. If anything, he's proving so far in spring that he's been the best starting pitcher. So, again, I'm really liking what I've seen from Clayton Kershaw. And also, 8 strikeouts in less than 5 innings. I get that it's not, the full big league talent, but still, 8 strikeouts in 4 2/3. Love to see it from Kershaw. No earned runs. As I mentioned, his curve has looked fantastic. It does seem like he's throwing the curve more often. I'm not sure if that's just because it's spring training. He's throwing out there more. Or maybe in 2020 he's going to be throwing it for a higher percentage. I don't have the exact percentage that he threw it last year, but my guess is just based off spring training, he's trying to throw it just a little more frequently. Now, another name I want to touch up on is Brusdar Graterol, who finally has made some outings as a Dodger. Infamously was originally a Red Sox, then he was back to being a Twin. Now he's a Dodger because the Red Sox, for whatever reason, didn't want this guy, and I know it's been only 2 outings, but the Red Sox are looking like they made an awful decision. So Brusdar Graterol has made 2 outings out of the bullpen, when an inning in each outing. Has thrown a total of 2 innings. His first outing was in a split squad game, and the game wasn't broadcasted on TV, but I did listen to the radio broadcast from the Rockies. Now, according to the broadcast, they said that the speed gun didn't hit triple digits, and it looked like he was easily pumping 100. Now, the speed gun was saying 99, but they were saying, yeah, this looks like 101, 102 maybe even, and I guess he threw a slider that supposedly clocked 93, so that's a good sign. Now go over to his outing from the other night. I believe it was Wednesday night. He came in to face the Giants. Another scoreless inning, had 2 strikeouts, was hitting 99 on a consistent basis. Threw that off-speed 92-mile-an-hour slider, and he looked practically unhittable. He was throwing 99 with ease, and this is a guy I'm really high on. He's only 21 years old, and I think that down the line, in maybe a year or two, this is a guy that can replace Kenley Jansen to become the Dodgers closer. We know last year he had great stuff. He kind of struggled with command. I think appeared in like 10 games with the Twins, had that ERA of about 4.5. We know that his stuff is there, the velocity's there. If he can just get better control of his fastball, of his slider, this is a guy that can be potentially dominating. He could be an all-star this upcoming season. I'm not saying, again, he can replace Kenley this year, but if Brusdar Graterol comes out and, he has a strikeout ratio of like 14 strikeouts per 9 innings, his ERA is around 2. I'm not saying if Kenley struggles, but there's a chance he can see more ninth inning appearances this upcoming season. I don't think the Dodgers do that. I think they stick with Kenley, but again, Brusdar Graterol, it's only been 2 outings, but I've really liked what I've seen from him so far. All right, with that being said, let's move on now to my predictions for the 26-man roster. So 13 hitters, 13 pitchers. That's what it looks like it's going to be for the Dodgers. For the most part, we have about, 11 to 12 guarantees, depending on where you stand on certain things. So let me just go over who the guarantees are as of right now. Will Smith, Austin Barnes, those are going to be the Dodgers' 2 catchers. Max Muncy, Corey Seager, Justin Turner, Cody Bellinger, Mookie Betts, A.J. Pollock, Jock Peterson, Chris Taylor, Kike Hernandez. In my opinion, those are the 11 guarantees. As you may have, noticed, I did leave out a name, Gavin Lux. I do think Gavin Lux is likely to make the 26-man roster. I'll get to him in a few minutes as to why I think he might not, but I don't think him. Those 11 names I mentioned, those are, I think, like 99.999% guaranteed, whereas Gavin Lux might be like a 75 to 80% guarantee. But as of right now, I'm going to put Gavin Lux on that, which does leave one additional spot. Now, I do think this final roster spot for hitting-wise comes down to two guys. I think it comes down to Edwin Rios and Matt Beatty. And as of right now, I mean, things could change. But as of right now, I'm going to give the final edge to Edwin Rios. I do think he gets the final nod over Matt Beatty. Now, both these guys, I mean, you could go with either one. I think it's going to be a solid choice. However, the reason I do like Edwin Rios is mainly due to his insane power. This is a guy where he can come off the bench in a pinch hit situation where if you need someone to hit a home run, this guy's going to be your best bet. Now, obviously, you got guys like Cody Bellinger, Max Muncy, Mookie Betts in your starting lineup, but a lot of people can make the case that Edwin Rios might have the most and best raw power on the Dodgers. So I think just, again, for the ability for him to come off the bench in a pinch hit home run situation, I do think that gives him the edge. Now, a number I was shocked about when looking up Edwin Rios and Matt Beatty's numbers and comparing them, Edwin Rios had a higher WAR last year than Matt Beatty. I mean, now granted, Edwin Rios had a 0.4 WAR, Matt Beatty had a 0.3 WAR. Edwin Rios only had 47 at-bats with the Dodgers compared to Matt Beatty, who had 249 at-bats. Now, again, take that for what you want, but in his short time, Edwin Rios was a really good player, had an OPS of over 1,000. I get it, only 47 plate appearances, but he looked really good for the Dodgers. And something else that I think will give him the edge are the fact that he has near even splits against righties and lefties, whereas Matt Beatty hit only 125 last year against lefties, only had, I think, about 40 to 50 at-bats against them, so it's kind of like the whole Jock Peterson situation where if it's a lefty, you're essentially not playing him, so Matt Beatty, he, can't really play against a left-handed pitcher. Now, Beatty is more versatile. You can put him in the outfield. You could put him throughout the infield. Edwin Rios is kind of limited. I think he can play like third base, first base. I think he has outfield experience. But overall, like defensively, I think Matt Beatty's the safer bet. But again, it just goes to what the Dodgers prefer. Do they want a guy that can play all over like Matt Beatty? Or do they want a guy that, you trust his bat more? He has that pinch hit home run potential. So that's where I'm currently at with that. Again, you can't go wrong with either. But as of right now, if I had to decide, I would give the edge to Edwin Rios. Now, I did talk about the potential Gavin Lux situation. Now, this could be interesting. As I mentioned, I think it's likely he cracks the 26-man roster to start the season. I think it's probably, like I said, a 75 to 80% chance. Now, people are thinking, why would he not be on the opening day roster? Here are a few reasons why. So first and foremost, you can make the case where he did struggle last year in September. Maybe you want to start him back in the minors, get him a few at-bats, get him more consistent at-bats, because I know long-term he's going to be the everyday second baseman, but I don't think the Dodgers are necessarily ready to take at-bats away from Kike Hernandez, Chris Taylor, guys like that. So if you have him in the minors, you're getting him consistent at-bats, and it opens up a more available playing time for everyone because you can slot Cody Bellinger in at first, move Max Muncy over to second base, and then all of a sudden now you have an open outfield spot for either Jock, AJ Pollock, Chris Taylor, Kike Hernandez, Matt Beatty, whoever it may be. Or, you can put Kike Hernandez there at second base, Chris Taylor there at second base, give them more consistent at-bats, which I think kind of the Dodgers want to do early on. So that could be a reason to keep Gavin Lux down there for a month or so, give guys more consistent playing time, and again, get Gavin Lux back there to AAA, get his confidence up, because last thing you want is for him to start the first month hitting 200 or worse and his confidence is shot. Have him hit 300 plus in the minors, then call him up around May. Now, I was listening to the True Blue LA podcast with Eric Steven the other day, and he did bring up a good point. The Dodgers could try to do what they did with Chris Bryant, or what the Cubs did with Chris Bryant, and I guess what the Dodgers did with Walker Buehler, where I guess they postponed their playing time, their service time. That way they can get an extra year of eligibility for them before they hit free agency. Now, according to Eric Steven, if the Dodgers keep Gavin Lux in the minors until May 8th, meaning he's in the minors until May 8th, and then come May 9th, May 10th, you call him up, I think you officially get an extra year with Gavin Lux until he hits free agency. Now, then again, the numbers could be wrong, but that's just what he said in the podcast. So Supposedly, now he did mention this in the podcast as well. The Dodgers did the same with Walker Buehler a few years ago, where I guess he was like 4 days shy of getting that full service time, so he fell 4 days shy. The Dodgers got an extra year of him before he hits free agency. Again, I'm not exactly sure if the Dodgers plan on doing that. I'm not sure if that's what they have, if that's what they're intending moving forward. But Gavin Lux is a guy they project to be a future superstar, a future guy that they have in their visions moving forward. So if all you got to do is keep him in the minors for the first, 5-6 weeks of the season, I wouldn't be entirely shocked if they were to do that. I think it's an awful rule. I think the players get absolutely screwed. But then again, if by having him in the minors for another month gains an extra year until he hits free agency, by all means, I think the Dodgers should do it because Gavin Lux, he's not going to be needed for the first month. You can make the case he's not going to be needed all season because they're going to be such a good team. So then again, that's another thing to keep an eye on. Overall, as I mentioned, I think he'll ultimately crack the 26-man roster, but if he doesn't, that might be the leading factor why. So let's just say Gavin Lux doesn't make the 26-man roster. I think Matt Beatty's going to take his place, and Edwin Rios and Matt Beatty both will be one of the 13 hitters. But then again, I think he makes it, but just in case he doesn't, these are some reasons why. So those are my 13 hitters. It's time now to get to my 13 pitchers, where for the most part, I think you can maybe guarantee 9 to 10 of these guys. First off, the starting rotation: Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw, David Price, Julio Urias, and Alex Wood. They haven't officially announced that as their starting rotation, but as I've talked about in previous episodes, the Dodgers, they said this is the year for Julio Urias. He's going to be a starter. And Alex Wood has come out and he essentially has said things like, I didn't come here to come out of the bullpen. I came here to be the starter. Me and the Dodgers are on the same page. So again, hasn't been officially confirmed, but it looks like that's going to be the 5 right there. So that does guarantee 5 spots, which leaves 8 available. Now, these are some of the guarantees, as I mentioned: Kenley Jansen, Blake Treinen, Joe Kelly, Pedro Baez. I would have to figure Ross Stripling is guaranteed to get a bullpen spot, and if healthy, Jimmy Nelson probably would have to get a bullpen spot as well. So assuming all those guys are healthy, that does leave us with 2 vacant spots. And if you're paying attention, the 6 names I just mentioned are all righties, which means I would assume if the Dodgers go that route with 6 righties, they're probably going to finish the bullpen with 2 lefties, meaning it's going to come down to Adam Kolarek, Scott Alexander, and Caleb Ferguson, I would have to assume. As of right now, my guess, I'm going to go with Adam Kolarek and Scott Alexander. Adam Kolarek, I know there's that whole new rule of the 3-batter minimum, but you still can bring out relief pitchers with 2 outs in an inning. All they have to do is finish the inning and they're good to go. So I think for that reason, Adam Kolarek is still highly valuable because he is so dominant against left-handed hitters. He has struggled against righties in his career. I think righties have like a 299 career average, like an 850 OPS. If he can just get that average down to like 249, get that OPS down to like the low 700s, he's still going to be very valuable. But again, you should go listen to the True Blue podcast because a lot of great stuff is over there as well. But Eric Steven mentioned how I think last year in like 60 or 70% of Adam Kolarek's outings, he came in needing to get only 1 out. So it's not something entirely new for Kolarek, so I think he's probably guaranteed a spot. Now you have Scott Alexander and Caleb Ferguson. Caleb Ferguson had a really down season last year compared to his 2018 season, so I think for that they'll start him in the minors. However, the injury concern with Scott Alexander did miss most of the season last year. I think he was shut down in June, so he missed essentially the last 4 months of the season. He has already appeared in spring training this year. I do think he'll get the edge over Caleb Ferguson because I do think they want Caleb to build more innings in the minors. But then again, I wouldn't be shocked if they go with Caleb Ferguson over Scott Alexander. But as of right now, I'm going to go with those 2 guys. So that does round out my top 13. So I mentioned it earlier in the podcast, but if Jimmy Nelson does start the year on the injured list, which I predict, I think that Bruce Dark Gratterall is going to get that final spot to replace him. Overall, I think Bruce Dark Gratterall, is going to play a huge role in the bullpen for the Dodgers this upcoming season. I don't think necessarily it's going to be to start the season, but come maybe like June and July, I think he'll be up full time and getting consistent outings out of the bullpen. But I think to start the season, especially if everyone's healthy, they're likely going to want to keep him in the minors at least to start the year so that way he can get consistent outings. Maybe give him some starts if the Dodgers have any interest in giving him starts. But I think the Dodgers long-term view him as a reliever, which is why these next two names I'm briefly going to talk about, I think start the season in AAA, and that's Dustin May and Tony Gonsolin. Dave Roberts pretty much came out and said, yeah, Dustin May is going to be a starter. We view him as a starter moving forward, so we want to build him up as a starter. So with that being said, as of right now, assuming everything stays healthy, there's no room for him in the starting rotation. So I think Dustin May is going to begin the season in AAA. He'll be there probably until there's an injury or until they want to bring him up because he's just doing so well in AAA. So Dustin May, as of right now, I think it's really likely that he starts the season in Oklahoma City. Tony Gonsolin, he's one where I've kind of gone back and forth with in regards to making the 26-man roster. I kind of view Tony Gonsolin more as a reliever than a starter, mainly just because the starting pitching is just so deep. And I think Tony Gonsolin is really good out of the bullpen, but Dave Roberts didn't necessarily say what he said about Dustin May, but he did kind of say something along the lines of, we also view Tony Gonsolin as a starter, and we want to build him up as a starter. So if that's the case, then I think he's going to start the season in AAA as well. However, I do think his time there is going to be shorter than Dustin May because I do think Tony Gonsolin is such a good option coming out of the bullpen. Kind of like a Ross Stripling kind of role where he can go frequently. He can give you multiple innings. So Tony Gonsolin, I'm not exactly sure what the plan is with him, but I do think he starts the season in AAA as well. So those are my 13 hitters. Those are my 13 pitchers. Obviously, a lot can change in the coming weeks based on injuries, based on health, just based on what the Dodgers want to do. But I think for the most part, out of the 26 spots, I think 21 of them are guaranteed. It's just going to come down to what they do with Gavin Lux, what they do with that final 13th hitter, and what they do with the back end of the bullpen, whether they want 2 lefties, whether they want 3 lefties, whether they keep, Jimmy Nelson on the IL or not, whether they keep Ross Stripling in the big league. I know there's been some talk of Ross Stripling potentially starting the season in the minors. Not exactly sure what they plan to do with that, so we'll have to wait and see, but those are my predictions for the 26-man roster. Leave a comment below if you're watching this on YouTube, who you think will get those final roster spots. Do you think it's going to be Kolarek and Alexander? Do you think it's going to be Matt Beaty or Edwin Rios? Or do you think it's maybe going to be another guy? Some guys that I didn't even mention are like Zach McKinstry, who's been lining up. Luke Raley may be a name that can get a spot. So if there's anyone else you think will get one of those 26-man roster spots, leave a comment below or hit me up on Twitter and let me know who you think will get it as well. But speaking of Twitter, it's time to move now to the Q&A segment of the show. As always, before I record a podcast, I always tweet out about an hour before saying, I'm recording a podcast. If you have any questions for the Q&A, let me know, reply with those. So we got a few right now. We got probably enough time for maybe 3 of them. So let's go through these right now. Jack at JG Baseball 20 says 100 wins before September. It's definitely doable. I definitely think the Dodgers have what it takes to get 100 wins by September. I do think the division is going to be so, I guess, not wide open, but the Dodgers are going to have such a significant lead. I don't think the Dodgers are necessarily going to be trying to push for, like 116 wins to tie the record. I definitely think the Dodgers could finish with 100 wins by September 1st. I wouldn't be shocked if they do. However, that's just asking for so much. I mean, I don't have, their current schedule up, or I don't really know how their schedule looks, but I don't see it happening. However, I wouldn't be shocked if they have like 90 to 95 wins by the start of September, but asking for 100, that's a lot. But they definitely could get it done, I definitely think, so I wouldn't be shocked if that were to happen. Evan Devoy, at Evan Devoy, said, would you rather have Alex Wood or Tony Gonsolin be your 5th starter? I've talked about this in previous episodes, but I'm really high on Tony Gonsolin, and I'm not officially sold on Alex Wood yet. Hasn't looked the best so far in spring. 2019 was a disaster for him, so I'm not a huge fan of pretty much guaranteeing him that 5th and final spot in the starting rotation. I get the Dodgers said, we want you to be a starter, and he said he didn't come here if he wasn't going to be a starter. but I haven't been won over by him yet, whereas Tony Gonsolin's looked really good already in spring training, and as I said, he's looked really good, especially in 2019, so if it was up to me, I would give Tony Gonsolin that fifth and final spot, especially because I am not a fan of having 4 lefties in the starting rotation. As of right now, Walker Buehler's the only righty, so this way you add Tony Gonsolin to the mix, it gives you 3 lefties, 2 righties, you can balance it out where you go Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw, David Price, Tony Gonsolin, Julio Urias, where you go righty, lefty, lefty, righty, lefty, righty, something like that. But then again, not exactly sure. But if it was up to me, I would go with Tony Gonsolin. I'd even go with Dustin May over Alex Wood at this point. I like Alex Wood, but I just don't trust him as of yet. I mean, again, do you want to just throw him out into the fire, even though he hasn't really proved anything as of late? I know he was great with the Dodgers a few years ago, but again, last year wasn't healthy, and when he was healthy, he looked awful, and he hasn't looked ideal in spring training. So then again, the Dodgers can do what they want, but I would really rather go with Dustin May or Tony Gonsolin over Alex Wood at this point. All right, the final question, it comes from Nick Roman. Does the team make a deadline move for a bullpen arm? I don't think Floro or Kolarek are going to perform up to expectations. That's a name I didn't even mention when talking about the 26-man roster. Dylan Floro, he's a guy where he could crack the 26-man roster. I'm not exactly sure where he fits in because the Dodgers just have so many righties out of the bullpen that are just better than Dylan Floro. We've seen flashes that Dylan Floro can be dominant, so I'm not exactly sure what the plan for him is moving forward. And Adam Kolarek, I mentioned this as well. He can really struggle against righties this year, and the 3-batter rule might kind of hurt him. So if Kolarek doesn't perform as expected, I wouldn't be shocked as well. So with that being said, can they go after a guy come trade deadline season? I'm looking at it right now as to what guys are going to be, free agents next season. I'm looking at it right now on MLB.com, and it pretty much has like notable free agents for 2021. And in regards to relief pitchers, there are not really anyone, noteworthy. It has Andrew Miller here. I don't know where he necessarily would fit. Now, he is a lefty, so that could be a good option depending on how he performs this upcoming season. But there's no notable guys that are going to be free agents. Now, of course, they can go and trade for a guy that's not going to be a free agent next year. So then I have to go and see who's going to be free agent in 2022. I'm not really exactly sure who's out there, but again, I wouldn't be shocked. Every year at the trade deadline, the Dodgers make some sort of deal. So do I expect them to make a deal at the deadline? I do. It's just a matter of, is that going to be for a starting pitcher? Is that going to be for a relief pitcher? Hitting-wise, I think they're fine. I don't think they're going to have to make a move for a bat. But I do think it's safe to say the Dodgers are likely to make a move. For a bullpen arm, again, it depends on which names are out there. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of guys that overperform this year that are going to be really good trade targets, so we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I do think the Dodgers make a trade deadline move, and I wouldn't be shocked if it's for a bullpen arm, especially maybe a lefty arm, because Adam Kolarek and Scott Alexander, Caleb Ferguson, if those are your best options out of the bullpen, I think the Dodgers have some work to do. But yeah, overall, I do think they make a move come the trade deadline. But that does wrap up this episode of Thinkin' Blue. If there's any questions you'd like answered in the next episode, make sure to leave a comment on this video and I'll get to those, or hit me up on Twitter. Follow me at Blake Harris TBLA. Hit me up, get into my DMs. I love talking Dodgers baseball with you guys, so make sure to go over there, interact with me, and make sure you give me the follow. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel where I post all my Dodgers podcasts here. And as I've mentioned in previous episodes, in the coming months, I'll be posting a lot of great Dodgers videos as well. Maybe some like quiz videos, some Dodger history videos, some fun kind of like interactive Dodger videos. So if you're a Dodgers fan, definitely subscribe. As I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, you can also listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The links to listen to those are in the description of this video, or you could go over to those apps and you could just search Thinkin' Blue with Blake Harris, or you can just search Blake Harris, and I think the podcast should come up. So make sure to follow me over there. That way, again, if you can't listen on YouTube, you can listen in the car, going to work, in the gym, at school, wherever you may be. You can listen to the podcast over there as well, so that way you never miss an episode, because with the season approaching, I'll have more frequent podcasts coming. Right now, I'm only doing like 1 a week, maybe 2 a week. My goal is to, once the season starts, have at least 2 to 3 a week, maybe even 4, something like that. So again, if you're a Dodgers fan, an absolute must follow. But yeah, guys, this has been Blake Harris. Thank you guys so much for listening. Give this video a thumbs up. Leave a comment below so that way I can interact with you guys. And as I mentioned, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. But yeah, this has been Blake Harris for Thinkin' Blue, and I will see you guys very soon.